Hey guys, how are you doing? This video is going to be a part of the 50 Rust project playlist series. In case you don't know about that, go to my channel, playlists, and there's a 50 Rust project playlist. Now we have built quite a few projects, and whatever we have learned till now, we want to take that and apply it to this project, which is today's project, and which is going to be about using MongoDB. So it has a connection to MongoDB. It has everything about how to work with MongoDB and complete CRUD operation. And for your ease of viewing and following along, I have put this code, the project, on GitHub. So I'm Akhil Sharma 90 on GitHub. Feel free to follow me so that you get updated on all the new projects that come up. Rust MongoDB project is the latest project, and feel free to start it so that I know you guys are following along with me. All right, and yeah, and also feel free to fork it in case you want to use something like this in the future. You want to work with MongoDB and Rust. Don't build anything on your own from scratch. Use it from the work that I've already done. All right. And yeah, so what I've also done is I have also created a make file for you, which has a little bit of Docker support. So in case, because I understand many of you might not know how to work with MongoDB, so you can just say make Mongo start and it'll pull the latest MongoDB container, like the image, and create a container for you, and keep running that container. And all you have to do is then start your server, which will be happening with make dev. Okay, so you can do that. Now this is obviously completely optional. Now if you have MongoDB running locally, you don't have to do that. You can just have your MongoDB like systemctl or daemon, MongoDB daemon running, and then all you have to do is just run your Rust server, and then they'll both get connected because we'll write that connect to 27017, which is like the default port. But I've just done it for people who have difficulty working with MongoDB. Anyhow, so then once you've run the project, you will be able to get all the books, create a book, edit a book, delete a book. Okay, and we'll build this. I'll build this with you from scratch in this video, but just want to let you know that I've already built it before, so that that leads to like better viewing experience for you. Because earlier, as you know, if you've been following me for a while, the Golang projects, I built it with you guys, many of those, and not beforehand. So that leads to is that I have to like figure out then on the go everything. But here, like everything else is figured out, so you don't get a lot of there's no time wastage in the videos. You just get to watch and get some great explanations from me. Otherwise, like earlier, I had to focus more on typing and more on building rather than explaining. But then I realized that from a lot of feedback from you guys that you want more explanation, and you don't want to build with me sometimes, and you don't want that format. You want like more explanations. So this is why I've changed the format a bit. I hope you're liking it. Let me know in the comments if you're liking it. What do you feel? What can be improved even more? This is like a very democratic channel. Okay, whatever you guys ask for, whatever you guys tell me to do, that's what I do, and I keep optimizing based on that. As you know that I don't do this for money. You know that already. Anyhow, so I have my server and everything running, and I will now create a new book. Okay, so here, so I created a new book, and then I can get the list of those books. So here it is. Get a list of those books. And now that I have only one book that I just created, I can get that book. Okay. So I've left this also for you guys so that you can easily interact with your APIs. You don't have to create your own Postman collection. Now I did this because I had some time, but usually I don't. So in the future projects, even if I don't have it, don't worry too much. Like don't be disappointed. I had some time here, so I just created that. And I've put some books that I like the Lean Startup from Eric Rice. I've put those examples here. You can feel free to change that based on the books that you like. And feel free to change the API around if you want. You can use the same thing for movies. You can change this from book to movies. I'm doing it for book because this is the exact replica of what I did for Golang. So the Golang, if you've seen my Golang playlist, there's a 46 project playlist on Golang on my channel as well. Feel free to check that out. So there I created a book API, and that became quite popular. In that I think I used Mongo in MySQL. So I'm using the exact same logic here, but this is in Rust, and this is using MongoDB. Okay. So here you can edit a book and you can delete a book. All of that is there. And let's try editing. Let's try editing the book actually. Why is the copy button not showing up? Okay, yeah. So edit the book. Actually, I'm getting too lazy. to edit the book, you need to copy the latest ID from here. So I'm getting too lazy for it, but yeah, I'll do it anyways because I'm like showing it to you guys. So let me open up a notepad. Okay, on my other screen, I've opened up a notepad and I've put my ID there. And now I'll have to replace that ID here and this. Yeah. So from the startup, the lean startup will change the name to the startup way, and everything else will be the same. But I'll have to change the ID, okay, the ID of the book to edit it. So I'll go ahead and remove this ID. Okay. And I'll replace it with the ID that is the actual ID of my book. Okay. So there seems to be some issue, little issue here and there. I think I had to mention like -d as well. Maybe I've not done that. Yeah, so I don't necessarily like working with. Okay, there's some internals over here now. All right, so we'll fix it together. We'll fix it, even if there's some problem here, which I don't think there is, but we'll fix it together later on. Let's not worry about this too much. Okay, let me show you the delete API. Okay, let me show you that. And for delete, I'll just have to change the what's happening today with this. Oops, I ended up, so I have to keep this actually big, otherwise I end up, deleting something else. I'll have to keep it enlarged. All right, so this is my ID and I will delete it. So let's say if it's deleted or not. Let's see if it's deleted. Yeah, so as you can see, there's nothing here, so it got deleted. Now let me try creating another book, right? And then let's edit it, and we'll come to know if there's a problem with the API or there's a problem in how I ran those commands. Now you'll usually see me get bored while running these commands because I like working with Postman now. Like curl kind of irritates me. so you'll see that I kind of get bored midway. But let's see if because this copying and all of that also doesn't work out really well for me. I'm trying to copy it and then it takes me 2-3 times. I'm sure you have the same problem. I'm sure you have the same problem as well. After you use Postman, you can't really go and use curl, right? It gets really boring using curl. All right, so but many people don't know about Postman, so that's why I've kept these curl queries this time, so that I'm trying to be more inclusive in how people can, like the number of people who can view these videos. Anyhow, so creating this, right? So let me run this command again and get this new ID from here. I will copy it. I will paste it here. Okay, I'll keep it here. Now let's try editing it again. Edit, and I will just change that ID. Okay. All right. Something seems off again to me. Something seems again off to me. So what I'll do is I will terminate this and I will copy and paste the whole query again. Something seems off because when I was going there, I saw that this particular single quote was missing, and then -d also became missing. So I have to be like very, very careful in editing this. If you know of a better way to do this in terminal, let me know, because I definitely don't, as you can see. Right. And here I'll just run this, and now it did edit that particular record. So yeah, it was just because I was getting bored running it properly, so I was not like careful enough to run the edit command. So that's why you're getting error. Now let's try running the get book. Okay, now you can see that from the lean startup, it changed it to the lean way, right? So edit is also working. Just want to let you guys know. right? So please ignore me, like what I do, which is not running the commands properly, because I'm more used to Postman now. But yeah, please ignore that. The APIs are working just fine. So make sure you copy these. Make sure you follow along with the code, and we'll build it together right now. And I'll explain it to you line by line. Now, even if you have access to the project, even if you can see everything, right? Even if you know the code, I request you to build it along with me, like, because why I'm building it along with, like, from scratch is for you guys. I mean, you build it along with me, and I always ensure that I'm still, like, even if I know the code, I always build again. It's not just a code walkthrough, because the more you stay in touch with these technologies, right, the more muscle memory it builds, and then you're able to solve these issues in production when you're building like really high, when the stakes are really high, when you're building like production apps. So I always recommend that even if you know the code, even if you know the syntax really well, like, build from scratch. Do this on the weekends. Keep revising, keep building from scratch again and again on different projects, so that, or like on these kind of YouTube videos, build along with me or other people who post these kind of videos, and you'll just get to retain all of that you've learned. Otherwise, you'll forget everything easily, right? So like with Golang, Rust, even though I'm writing books on these technologies, creating courses on these technologies, I still have to keep myself hands-on. Otherwise, it's a big problem. Anyhow, so that's that, guys. Now I won't be editing anything from these videos out, right? So whatever I'm doing to figure things out and doing all of that, everything is in front of you. So like that ensures that everything is genuine, and also I don't have time to edit videos, to be honest with you. Okay, so now what we can do is we can actually build a new project from scratch. So I'll just stop my server here. It's time to build a project from scratch. So I'll clear everything out. Sorry, I went into home by mistake. So I'll go into the folder where I usually keep my Rust projects. You don't have to do that, but it's just recommended so that everything is like more organized. All right, and here we'll just create a new cargo project. Cargo new, Mongo, Rust, YT. That's a nice name. YT is for YouTube. So here you'll say Mongo, Rust, YT, and you will open this up in your code. Before you do that, just ls and check if you did get your cargo.toml in your SRC, and you open it up with your favorite code editor, whatever it may be. And now we'll start building stuff, right? So I'm now shooting this on a different day because I had to rush on that day. I had to rush for some work. So anyways, now I'll continue this video. So here, right, you have your main.rs. I'll get rid of everything, okay? And the way to start of a project like this, which is going to have some APIs, going to have database connection, the right way, if you ask me, is to think of the struct first. Struct is going to be like the heart or the core of your entire project, because that's going to talk to your database. That's also going to define how your requests and your responses are going to be, okay? So if you start from the struct itself, things get very, very smooth for you. All right, so this is how you do it. So let's say, since this is like a book API, right? So you start from the struct book, okay, defining the struct. A struct, by now you already know that this is like a custom data type that you can create on your own. So it's going to define what all the book is going to have. So book is going to have an ID, which is string, right? It's going to have name, which is again string. It's going to have author, again string. Number of pages, again it'll be usize, okay? And I need something called as added at. Now this is going to be date time UTC, okay? Now the thing is, to work with this, I need something called as chrono. So I'll get chrono here, and I'll get everything from that chrono that I need, right? So this is what I work with. There is one more thing which is again optional if you want to keep it. I am keeping this because I want to show you how to work with timestamps, and I'm using tags, how to work with multiple tags, because you will need all of these things. Now, one thing I want to point out is that this project is an incremental step up from the projects you've done before. In the sense, we will use all the things that we have learned before, but there will be some new things, and I want to show you new things because that's how your knowledge will increase. If we just keep using all the things that we've learned in combinations, you don't really, you get to practice, but you don't like incrementally build up your muscle, right? Your knowledge muscle. But with this, you would. Yeah, so with this approach, you would. Now, this is why it takes me a lot of time to think of the right project and the right incrementation, right? It takes me a long time to think about the right project for you guys, and then to build it, and then to remove the things that can get complex, and then keep only things that are necessary. Then build the project and then show you the video, right? So that's why it takes me a long time to post videos now as opposed to earlier, because I don't want to just randomly put videos in this series, right? Because what I don't want to happen is that somebody who's watching it, they get just like thrown off by the sudden increase in complexity. And I'll try to avoid it as much as possible, and I'm trying to avoid it, but maybe in some cases it's unavoidable. So for those you'll just have to string along. Now, there's one more thing that I want to point out is that even though I will build the project with you, right? Even though I will try and explain every single line, but it's possible that maybe that you haven't read the Rust book, and because of that, you might not understand some things in this project, right? Because you haven't read the basics, and that is completely all right. If that's completely all right if you understand that you don't have to give up, like it's clear in your mind that you don't have to give up. Like, let's say there will be some things, like for example, you don't know what a vector is, right? I didn't right now, for example, even though I'm explaining everything like to you, I didn't explain what a vector is because I'm assuming that everybody has to know what a vector is if they're working with Rust, but probably you have not read the Rust book, you don't know what this is. So don't get thrown off, don't come and just get stuck here, right? That's a bad practice. Move forward, build the entire project with me. Even if you don't understand some things or many of the things, completely okay, build it with me. Build multiple projects and build it multiple times. Then Google those things. Like, for example, you take this and just Google it. Understand why I wrote what I wrote, okay? Don't give up. Don't just come and post that in the comments saying, hey, I don't know what this is. Why are you using this? You didn't teach us this. Because, I'm assuming many things that you should be knowing. And, so even though I'm trying to explain every line to you, just make sure you use Google as well, okay? And you also read some books and all. All right, so now I want to create my main function somewhere around here, okay? Now the main function, I want it to be async, because the main function is going to help me create my routes. And those routes are going to end up calling functions in my handlers file. So there will be a handlers file here, right? I'm going to keep a very basic structure so as to not confuse you guys. But also we'll also work with multiple files so that we don't keep it too basic also. Okay. Now there will be a handlers file. So my main function is going to have like multiple routes. Those routes are going to call functions from the handlers file. Now these handler functions, right, they won't have a lot of business logic. They're just going to forward requests to my database file, which is actually going to have the logic of working with the database and doing all the CRUD operations. Then I'll need just one more file called the error.rs file. Okay, now like I said, db.rs is going to have a majority of our logic in terms of working in the database. Main and handlers are going to be quite light, okay? But let's build it anyways. Now, to build an async function, you would have to have, because we've done this before, you have to have Tokyo. Okay, so Tokyo, I need Tokyo here. And I need also result. Okay. Now I have my struct book, but you know that already know that we'll be working with database, right? So for that, I'm going to need serialization and deserialization. So I'll say serialize and deserialize debug, right? So if I'm using serialize, deserialize, what have I shown you before? I've shown you survey before, so we'll be using survey for the same purpose. Deserialize and comma serialize. Nice. Now to work with DB, I will need the logic from my DB, so I'll just use it anyway for now, because I need to work with my DB client and all of those things. So let's get now for the time being. Then I need something called as use standard convert infallible. Now this is very common. You'll see this very common. This is basically the convert package, convert module, and it just has some extra traits to supplement the standard library, and it helps us to convert data from data types to data types. It just makes it very easy for us to do that, right? To convert data between different data types. It's a good practice to write infallible here to involve infallibility, because it helps us to avoid errors especially while converting between different data types. And now for the big announcement, that we'll be using something called as warp. Okay. Now I've shown you a little bit about how Actix Web works. Like very basic, right? Because we built a project which uses Actix Web, but I didn't teach you about Actix Web. We just use it in a project, and we just saw it at a very basic level. And very similar to that, we have something called as warp, but this is like way lighter than Actix Web. Actix Web is like a huge framework. So in case you guys have watched my Golang tutorials, right? So I have that, like I told you, I think I have that 45 Golang project player series. In that, if you've worked with me on Gorilla Mux, that's like warp, like a very small module. Whereas Actix Web is like Gingonic, right? It's huge. It has so much more functionality. So whenever we want to do something light, right? We want to get some light work done. You don't always want to involve Actix Web, okay? So that's a good practice. Don't always involve, because it's a huge library, right? If it's just building like a very small CRUD for books, don't get Actix Web involved, because not all projects require a huge, like not all, problems require a hammer. Sometimes you just need to use a screwdriver. So today we're just using a screwdriver. And you will see this very often. So you'll see warp being used with filter and rejection. Now filter is the building block for warp, okay? And by the way, whatever I'm telling you about warp right now, that's all you need to know. But if you have more curiosity, you can go and dig down into the documents for warp. But whatever I'll teach you right now, that's all you need to know to build APIs. You don't have to know more than that, like to build stable APIs. Because anyways, like I said, you'll be using this in small projects. Don't ever think of using it in a huge project, okay? But it's important to learn this, because many times, like let's say you're working with, I'll tell you the use case of this, right? Let's say you're working with your team, and they're building like AI models and machine learning models and all of that, and they've trained the data. Now they want that data to be available as through APIs for somebody who wants to consume them in the front end or on some other system. That's where you'll use something like warp quickly, like create a quick API and then give the APIs to somebody else, right? But if you're building a full-on project with like almost like a social media or something like that, and everything's very API driven and API intensive, that's where you'll get Actix Web involved. Okay, so just remember when to use what. All right, so filter is like the building block for warp. Okay, and this helps us to create our APIs, our routes. This is what's going to help us to do that. And the syntax when we use filters is going to be quite different from what you've seen ever before. Like it's a very different syntax, but it's also extremely intuitive. So once you've done this, once you've used it, it becomes like second nature to you, and you'll be able to like build APIs very fast with warp. And rejection again is something that's really important. It's an important part of warp, because all the requests that you have not clarified with filter, they will all get rejected, and we want that rejection to happen. So that's why rejection, filter and rejection are two important parts of warp, whereas wherein filter is like the building block for warp. Okay, so all of that out of the way. Now I need two types of results. One result is just going to be the standard result, and I need the web result. Okay, I wanted to get like W capital and R capital and everything else small. Here you'll say standard result error and okay, and my web result. So both of these are obviously types, so type result, type web result. Here again I'll say standard result T comma rejection. Okay, now in my main function I want to be first working with my database. So I'll say db equal to db init dot await. Right, so whenever you work with database, whenever you're initializing, starting off a database, all of that, you want await. This is why you used async. Now we don't have db here, so I'll just write here mod db, and I will need error here and handler here. Right, so these are all my modules, db error and handler, db error and handler. As you can see here, we want all of those here. And most importantly, now the most important thing is going to be this, right? Creating our books API. So how do you do that? So you say warp and path and everything. I want everything to work with the book path. This is my path. Okay, so like I said, this is just the beginning of the syntax, but we'll create the syntax now. But I think this is very, very easy and straightforward to understand. The syntax that I was talking about that you want to get used to, and which is going to be very beneficial if you get used to it, is this. So to create book routes, the way filtering works is you say the dot and, right? So firstly, what do you want to say? Let's say you want to create a new book. Okay, how do you create a new book? How do you create a new book? You use the post method. So here you'll say post, and we'll be getting the body in JSON, obviously, and I will have a function called with database. I don't have this function right now, but I will create it. Okay, and then I want to send, basically I want to call my create book handler function, right? So like I said, we'll create a route here. So this is the entire syntax of creating a route, which is going to be a post route, going to accept body JSON, going to work with a database, and the request is actually being forwarded to this function called create book handler. It will be in the handlers file here, create book handler. Okay, we'll go there, and like I said, our handlers is going to be quite light. Not much business logic here, and we'll just forward requests to our db.rs. Okay, and apart from this, what could you have? You could have, let's say, a edit request, right? Somebody wanting to edit a book, right? So you could either create a book or edit it. So you can say or book. All right. And here, the way this works is you come to this line and you say dot and warp put, right? Just like we had warp post here, we have warp put here. So dot and warp path param. Now you need params for updating and deleting because you want a particular ID. You want to update the data for a particular ID and you want to delete the data for a particular ID. So that's what you will get in the params. Then you also need the body because this is going to have the latest data that you want to update it with. Dot and with db. Now it's the same thing. There is no change here. With db dot clone. And then what's the function you want to send to? Handler edit book handler. That's our function. Okay, so this is working perfectly. You can bring this bracket, which is the bracket for the OR for this whole thing, to the previous line. And here you can have another OR. And now this OR will be the one for deleting the book. So it's going to be very similar, like I said, to update, but because we'll need the param, but we don't need the body because there's no body for delete. You just need the param ID. Okay, so here you'll say dot and warp delete dot and warp path param and with db dot clone and dot and underscore then handler delete book handler. Okay, so that's for deleting. Now obviously we want something to get all the books, right? Get all the books. So for that I have book dot and warp get and with db clone and underscore then handler books list handler. Bring this bracket here, close it off. All right, so essentially your if you get a post request, you're sending it to create books handler. You're getting a put request, sending it to edit book handler. Getting a delete request, sending it to delete book handler. Getting a get request, sending it to books list handler function. All these functions need to exist in our handlers file. Now for our error recovery, I'll just add a line here for let routes equal to book underscore routes dot cover error and handle underscore rejection. Then you want to say print ln and started on port 8080. And now the most important line, which starts off your server. So it's just wrap. So if you want to start off your server, this is just that one line that will do it for you. And you want to send in the routes that you just created, all the routes that you just created. Okay, which is your book routes, this whole thing, right? And that's captured in routes, but also we have recovery for error handling. And you have now routes dot run zero comma zero comma zero comma zero, and here you'll say 8080 dot await. All right, and then finally we'll say okay. Now the only thing missing from our perfect execution, the only thing that's missing is the with db function that I've been calling all this while. So I'll create that. So I'll say function with underscore db and some db filter extract is equal to db comma infallible plus clone or any dot map move db dot clone. Okay, so that's it. That's everything that you needed for your main.rs file. Okay, so that's a good start. Now we want to create our handlers, then our database.rs file. So database.rs file is going to be slightly long, like about 140 lines or so. Handlers file, like I said, is going to be very small, like 30 lines or so. Okay, and let's start with handlers first. And for our handlers, we will need, so I'll say use create. I need my web result that I just created here. Web result, this one. So I'll say web result. But I'll also use my DB. Because essentially handlers is going to, like I said, is going to forward requests to our DB, which is database. And we following this pattern, create, right? Now with Golang, if you've been following my Golang projects, whenever we create a folder, all of the files in that folder belong to that same package. But here you can have control over the crates, right? With Rust. So it's just a little different way of doing it. I feel this is much cleaner. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like. Now, obviously, with Rust, you can do the same thing with like we do with Golang. With Golang, you can kind of do the same things with Rust by some, if you arrange things a little bit differently. But like this is the default way of working with Rust and default way of working with Golang. Right? I feel the working with Rust default way is a little cleaner. But let me know what you feel and if you like this. And here we're using some specific things from Warp, for example, status code, and then reject, and we want to send a JSON reply and reply. Okay. So what happens in the handlers is you're either rejecting it, you're sending a status code saying that, hey, there's this error, or you're sending the reply back in JSON, or most importantly, you're accepting a request. So we have to create our book request. How the request looks like when a user sends the book information to the API. So this is what it looks like. You have name and author, and you have number of pages, U size, you have tags, string. So that's your book request. And then you have your list of books, which is, for example, books list handler. And these functions that we are defining here are, we're just calling these functions books list handler, read book handler, edit book handler. So these four functions, we need them to be here. So we'll have books list handler, we'll have create book handler, we'll have our edit book handler, and we'll have our delete book handler. And all of these, as we know, are async functions. So I'll say pub async functions db the get back is a web result. We'll implement reply. So if you want to if you want to get all the books, what do? So you just say db.fetch books, right? Fetch books is going to be a function in db, and that's where we'll run that MongoDB function that we need. But right now we're just forwarding requests to the db file, and we'll map the error say okay, and we want to send a JSON reply back. So we'll say JSON ampersand books. Okay. Now for create book handler, going to be very similar. It is a public async function. Create book handler. It requires a body, which is going to be book request. This is the data it's going to use to create a new book in the database. Web result and PL reply db.create underscore book. Again, this function will be in the db file. Sorry, I'll just put my phone on silent because otherwise I'll just keep getting these messages. It will be await map underscore error checked custom e. Okay, status code. Created. So that's the status code you want to send when a book is get created, and you're not sending the book back that you just created, right? For edit book handler, function edit book handler. To edit a book, you need the ID, and you also need the data for the book, which is the book request. So we'll end up using both book request db and then the web result. And similarly, we'll just call db edit underscore book function and pass underscore like ampersand id and ampersand body, passing with by reference dot await dot map underscore error and then so what I'll do is just to be just to bring OK and this on the same line. Status code. Okay. And now I think I don't have Rust Analyzer in my extensions. Let me check. Do I have it? I keep jumping between computers. Yeah, so I didn't have it. Just realized on this machine. Yeah, guys, go ahead and get this also, Rust Analyzer. So that you get all these red issues and errors and all of that. And obviously we'll handle that. Just like with Golang, I use those extensions. Similarly, I'm getting issues here, and then we'll be able to fix them together. All right, anyhow, so here you have delete book handler. Again, we'll start with the same way. Pub async function delete book handler takes an ID which is string, db which is db, web result pl reply db.delete underscore book ampersand id dot wait dot map underscore URL. So one problem that I face with using WSL, right? So as you can see here on top, I'm using WSL Ubuntu 20.04, and this is running inside my Windows system. The problem I see sometimes is that VS Code itself gets deleted sometimes, and I have my system reinstalls VS Code, and then all the extensions go out of whack many times. So this is why I keep checking if I have that extension or not sometimes, and I just install it back in case the system goes out of whack sometimes. So you also need to do that. Again, this is not the system that I use for production. This is my main computer. I use laptop for my company's code. Depending on what project I'm on, I'll use that laptop and then I'll push to production. This is why sometimes on this system, sometimes things are a little haywire sometimes. Okay, so here I made some mistake, sorry. Okay, just keep this the same as this actually here. So remove all of the things that are not necessary. Add double colon here. This looks more stable now. Okay. Here also I've missed this. It looks way more stable now. In your main.rs, here it should have been implements. And yeah, and everywhere the spelling needs to be warp, not wrap by mistake, it should be warp. Obviously we need all these packages, like we need surday and warp. So what we'll do is we'll go to our cargo.toml and I'll copy and paste some stuff, and you just have to do the same from my GitHub. Okay, so copy and paste like Tokyo, warp, surday, this error, chrono, futures, MongoDB. We need all these obviously, so I'll need those packages. And now once we added all those modules, the errors have seemed to go away. But here the thing you see, right, mod handler, it's because it should have been handler here, right? So I'll just rename it, not handlers, it's handler, singular, handler. So hopefully this should go away in a while. But yeah, here I can understand DB and error. We have not created anything here, so that will be an issue. Can't do anything about it yet. And this should now ideally start picking up our create book handler and all these functions ideally. Yeah, so once I pressed Control S, it started picking up these. So sometimes you just have to press Control S. Now it's picking up the handler as well. But yeah, DB and error, it still doesn't recognize. And is there something wrong here? Yeah, so error, again, in our error crate, we'll define all of that. We'll define this function, handle rejection also. Yeah. Everything else looks okay to me for now. Okay. And what we can do is we can get started with our Yeah, again here it's also not recognizing DB, so we have to create a DB and our errors for these files now. Now we want to start planning for our errors, but I know what's happening with handler.rs. I know why this is underlined. Problem is that we have not used it. The reason is that we were supposed to use it here, which was derive, right, serialize, deserialize, and debug. We were supposed to use it here, and this will be covered in square brackets. Cool. So everything, all the issues go away except from the DB issue, and we know that because we've not created the DB, DB file. Similarly, in main.rs also you have error and DB related issues because you've not created those functions and those files. So we'll start with errors now, and then we'll work towards DB. Okay. Now both are equally important. Why do we have a separate error file here? The reason is we want to handle errors more elegantly. That's the reason. Okay, we want to handle errors more elegantly. So the reason to the way to do that is you have separate errors to handle separate situations. So you could have an issue like, for example, not found, which is 404, or bad request, internal server error, method not allowed. How do you solve for those, right? And how do you ensure that the right message comes out for each of these errors? So now this is when I said incrementally, learning something new. So the first thing you learned was that you'll be using something about chrono, and then we'll be working in a more professional way with warp, right? Warp is something you don't know about, and then now we're working with the errors, right? That's something we have not done before. So many different things, so many new things that we're doing this time that we have not done before. So let's get started with errors. Firstly, I need to serialize. Actually, let me get these things later on. Okay, I need these things, but let me get these later on so that it'll make more sense. For now, okay, no, there are a couple of things that I definitely need, like which I can't do without. So one is this error. So this error being in our cargo terminal, this error 1.0. Okay, and we'll use that as our main library for handling errors. And then we obviously need warp because that's what we're using for handling the routes. And you know that what happens with rejection, there's a reply, there's those filtering and those routes and reply, and there's rejection. Rejection is for handling the APIs that you haven't implemented, and we want to handle that here. So we want to handle the rejection part here. Okay, so we need warp for sure. And then I would need, so I know the right way is to first start writing the code and then get these in, just to show you where we'll be using these, and then connecting this. But I just want to get this out of the way, guys. That's the only reason why I want to start this, because we've used these in the previous files as well. We've used stand, convert, infallible. We've used warp, and I've told you like why we need it. This is the only thing new that we're using here. Survey we need for serialization, and we need MongoDB. We need MongoDB for MongoDB related errors. Okay, MongoDB being your MongoDB package. And since we've not used any of these yet, that's why it's giving us all these issues. But we'll start using them now. So firstly, let's start off derive. I'll say derive, and I'll say error, comma, debug. Okay. Now, what I'm about to do right now is a very, very common pattern that you will see in many different projects, right? So many projects that you'll find that you'll work on. Let's say you join a new company, new team, and then they're working on a new project or an old project that you have joined newly. You would see there's a separate errors file for sure for error handling, but most importantly, you will see this enum for errors, right? Where you'll have your different types of errors. So for example, I would need my Mongo error, okay. I'll need my Mongo query error, and I'll need my Mongo data error, then I'll need invalid ID error. So these are things that can happen with my MongoDB, right? So this is just a general Mongo error. So here I will say error and MongoDB error. Then I will say here hashtag from MongoDB error and comma. Then I'll have Mongo query error. Before that, I'll say error during Mongo DB query 0, okay, MongoDB error and error, okay, comma. Then for Mongo data error, so when I say MongoDB query error, right, this will be specifically used when we're running some kind of a query and it doesn't work out as we want it to work out. Similarly, here we'll have a Mongo data error where I'll define it like this: error could not access field in document. So, and Mongo data error from JSON document value access error. Like you're not able to get that specific value, even though you sent the ID and still you don't get that value. That will be a value access error. And then invalid ID error, in the sense the ID that you sent, like let's say for update or for deletion or for getting by ID that you sent, it itself invalid. So that's the last type of error that you can handle. So let's say invalid ID used. Okay, and here pass string. Awesome. Now for our error response, so I'll say derive serialize struct error response message and string. So my error response is going to look like this. It's going to be a struct, will have a message, will be just a string. That's it. That's my error response. Now for my warp, I'm going to implement rejection. So I'll say warp reject for error, and I'll have a public async function called handle rejection. Now this is the same function, guys, please remember. It's the same function that I was talking about out here, and this is the function that I'm defining out here. This is our main function for our error file. Now this part, right, the part about creating this function can get slightly boring for you sometimes. So because see, there are two things that bore developers to death, right? One is error handling, and the second is writing test cases. These two things, including me, right? Including me, you can get really bored while doing this. So if that's the case with you, just do it for the first time. Like, since we're doing it for the first time in this project, just do it once, and then later projects onwards, either I won't like include this in the project, or I'll just keep it for you already, and then you can just copy and paste it from GitHub. Okay, so you have those two options. But this is a skill you have to know. I mean, you don't want to go into production like a full-on project without knowing how to handle errors properly. It's just not done. I mean, it's just not done, guys. you'll get into a lot of trouble with that. So here you have 10 reply, dynamic reply, infallible. Okay. So firstly, I'll define code, which is going to be my status code, because I'll be returning these status codes depending on the issues that I'll be handling, and the message that's supposed to go into my edit response. These are the two things that I want here to begin with. Now I'll start handling the types of errors. So if error is underscore not found, what do I want to do then? I want to say I want the code to be status code and not found. Really simple, very straightforward. And what do I want the message to be? The message in the error response, what do I want it to be? I want it to be not found again. So not found. So you can send a custom message here, blah blah blah, and put your emojis and all that if you want as well. It doesn't matter. You can do that. You can do all of that. Okay. Now here you'll say else if let sum equal to error dot find and say warp filters body deserialize error and code is equal to status code bad request. So this is going to handle your bad request. If you after deserializing the body, you get some kind of an error because the body that's being received in the request does not match your expectations. You want to send that as a bad request, right? Getting some weird kind of, like people trying to inject wrong values in the request. That's a big problem, right? So invalid body. And then you want to handle for internal server error. So you'll say else if let sum percent error is equal to error dot find and we'll match the error now. So println unhandled application error. Like for all the things that we are not foreseeing, right? We don't want it to lead to something that we're not expecting. We don't want any unexpected behavior. This is why we'll handle that with an unhandled application error, which is simply your internal server error. And in the message also, you can send your internal server error, which will, since you're using status code, right, it'll come up as like a 500 error for things that you have not handled. Why is this here twice? Okay. All right. Yeah, so I get quite confused sometimes, right, with the after turning on the plugins, and sometimes what was written by the plugin I'll write it again by mistake. Whatever, my bad. All right, so far so good. Okay, and here we'll say else if let sum error dot find, and now you're going to handle for method not allowed. So you'll say reject and method not allowed. Right, so we're handling get, put, post, and delete. Anybody tries anything apart from this, right? You don't want them to get to your server, so that's why you'll handle that as well. So you'll say code is equal to status code method not allowed. Right? So having these, right, is way better than remembering all those status codes like 500, 404, 401, 403, all of that. Better than that is just to write this. So I like this way of working. It's much cleaner. Method not allowed. Here you can say else println unhandled error comma error, and the code in this case again will be, so wherever you feel like things again go south and you've already handled stuff and you know that if it doesn't match that, something else needs to step in, so you can handle that with internal server error. Now let's say that JSON is equal to reply just a second, and okay, JSON is equal to reply JSON value ampersand error response message dot into comma. So just make sure all the brackets are getting close. So I'm getting distracted by these a little bit, right? Maybe you are as well, but this is just showing where this function is ending. So handle rejection function is just ending somewhere out here, right? So we'll finish this off with box new reply with underscore status and apply JSON status code. Actually, just supposed to say JSON and code. Still seems something seems to be off here. Yeah, so now that I saved this file, everything seems okay now. Okay, everything seems all right to me now. But yeah, so this is our errors.rs file. I'm still trying to see if there's something amiss, but everything seems all right for now. So we'll just round this off now. Then we can move on to our db.rs. Again, if you got confused while doing the error thing, just copy and paste this, guys. Everything will work perfectly fine. The db.rs file is actually really important. So that's the thing that you're going to spend more time on, actually. So what's happening is I'm getting slightly confused by how the Rust analyzer is working inside VS Code. Okay. And especially on this machine at least. So what I'll do is I will disable it for now because it's adding some things in the code, and I'm not getting and also getting distracted by the errors, so many errors. So what I will do now is I will disable it for the time being, right? Just to remove the distraction, disable it, and I hope it's disabled. Well, it's still not disabled. I think it requires me to like reload everything again. So I'll just reload it again. Yeah, now it's definitely disabled. So yeah, I'll build this db.rs and then I'll again activate the Rust analyzer, and then I'll use it to help me fix the code. Okay. So in the db file, I need things that I've already built before from the other files, right? For example, I need everything from error, I need my handlers, and especially book requests, because as you know, the book request is basically how the data is going to be organized or represented in the database as well. That's why we created the book request struct. I need the book itself, and I need result. Okay, where the book is this, I need result as well. So you can, with Rust, why I was saying it's very clean is because you can select what you want from your grades. You can select exactly what you want, and so that's what I like as a cleaner way. Because what if something is not working? What if some of the things are not working, and you don't want those to be imported in this file? So you can always just select the things that you want, and that's a really clean way of working. So that's what I really like about Rust. Okay, prelude. I need chrono because I want to add timestamps. Then I need futures. And obviously, because this is my database file, I need to work with MongoDB. So I'll need document, object ID, and JSON. Now, if you've done the MongoDB projects with Golang in my Golang project series, you know exactly how this works. So the package, right? The module package, whatever, for MongoDB that we're using right now here is very similar. Like the job it does for us, it's very similar to what the MongoDB package back in Golang does for us. Very, very similar, right? In the sense, it helps us JSON, object ID, all those things, and most importantly, it helps us with client, like helping us with creating the client and client options and the collection. Okay, so firstly, the database name, then your collection, ID, and name, right? All these things that you want to create in your database. And author, right? So book, as you know, has ID, name, author, number of pages, added and tags. So we need all of those things. Author will be &string author, number of pages, &string, added at &string, added at, constant tags. Now, the thing that I have been importing in all of these other files is my DB struct, which is actually client, right? So whatever I've been importing till now, like DB, whatever I've been calling the database till now, it's just a client, just the MongoDB client, which we'll create with the help of the MongoDB package. And I will implement DB. Now, this will enable me to implement functionality for the database, right? In the sense, which are essentially like database level functions. So in the sense, all the functions that you want to have like initialize, fetching the books, all the functions that we called from our handler, which is fetching the books, creating the book, and editing the book, deleting the book. All of these functions we need to create here, and they will all be part of this. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then all we had to do from the other files was just import db, right? That's it, and that's how you'll get access to all those functions. Now, firstly, I need the logic to connect to the database. Okay, and here I'll say pub async function init. Now you know that I'll also give you that make file, right? And the make file we'll just copy and paste from my GitHub project. And make file will start off our Docker with the MongoDB, but you could be using a local MongoDB instance without Docker, or you could be using from mongodb.com. It doesn't matter, you just need the link. So for the client options, right, helps you start off the connection to the MongoDB. So in my case, it's MongoDB 127.0.0.1 to 7017 dot await. Okay, and you also add the app name to the client options, which is going to be bookie string so use the client and use with options, and you pass the client options that we just created. And you will realize that this is very similar to what we do with Golang as well when we use MongoDB, right? We use the client options to parse this, which is our connection to MongoDB, the port 27017 on localhost in our case. You just have to replace this with your MongoDB URL in case you're using an online database. This is the name of the app. Okay, and then you connect. Basically, you create the client options. You create the client, and now you have the client. All right, and now we'll work with our other functions, all the other functions, which is like fetch books and create book and all of that. So here, you come here. Okay, you're still inside this DB. It's all going to be part of DB, all the functions, and you are going to say pub async fetch books ampersand self result vector book. Now vector is like slices in Golang. Is like a collection of multiple different structs. So this is why we're expecting the result to be a multiple collection of different structs, which is in this case book is a struct, right? So you can't just put that in an array because it's going to look something like this, like each book is going to have all of this detail, right? So we want a collection, so that's a vector. That's what our result is going to look like. This is why we have defined it like this. And to get all the books, you need the cursor. So you'll say cursor is equal to self, and then you'll use get collection. Is standard MongoDB related stuff, which is and find, right? So you essentially you're passing. So if you've ever run MongoDB queries, which I'm sure you have because you've been following my channel, you pass like an empty query if you want to retrieve everything that the collection has. So you from that collection you'll retrieve everything because you're passing like nothing in that in the find, and then for error you'll have Mongo query error. Okay. So for our result, we'll say vector book is equal to vector new, and whatever you've got right now in the cursor, you want to structurize, or I don't know what the right English word for that is. You want to like put a structure to it, right? you want to go over it using a while loop. Let some doc go over all those docs. Use cursor dot next. It'll keep going over to next like that, you know, to each next value, and you will be pushing that in the doc format. And here you will say OK and result. Okay. Okay. So now the question comes, what is doc to book? When you say self, you know you're talking about the self, and you want to get this doc to book function, right? So we don't have that yet, but we can create it. And we're going to use this function a couple of times here and there. I just realized that this is still here, and you might want me to minimize it for better visibility. So let's create the doc to book function. So if you say doc to book self and doc. Now warp and this MongoDB package we're using, they're quite basic, right? So that's why we have to do quite a few things on our own. But when in the future videos, we look as to how we can reduce the work on our side. Now here there's a few things, right? First is the ID, then you have the name, the author, the number of pages, you have added underscore at, and you have tags. Okay, so I'm just checking here also. So you have all these things, and so documents that you, I'm sure you know this, whatever you store in a MongoDB, it's called as document. So from document to, that's why it's called as document database, MongoDB. So document to book is the struct that we have, and document is what MongoDB understands. So, and we want to convert between them, right? So this is what we're doing with this function, and this was required to be able to send the result back from here. So now we're creating this function doc to book, and ID is going to be equal to doc dot get object ID, and name, again we'll say let name equal to doc dot get string name, and author is equal to doc dot get string author, and let number pages doc dot get I32 num pages, and just add the let here as well. Doc dot get date time, added at doc dot get array tags. Okay, so now you have that. Now let's create our book. So let book is equal to book. When you see something with a capital B, be sure that we're talking about our struct. So book, the variable, is equal to book, which is the struct, with some value. So we'll assign these values like ID, name, author, num pages, added, tags, all of that. We'll make these equal to these values that we just got from the document. So use document dot and those values, assign them to all of these variables here. I know it's a lot of manual work to get this data in. It's called as data wrangling. We need to do all of this to get our data here. But then this is the best practice. This is how you do it. This is like the most stable way to do it. And like I said, we can use some packages in the future. which will automate some of these things for us and make it much easier. But now, just learn this really well, because this is something you'll see very, very often implemented in many projects, and especially if you're joining as a new REST developer in a new company, you will see this all the time. This is by no way legacy code. This is not legacy code. This is like how even modern REST developers do it now. But then there are, like I said, there are much better ways to do it, and we will learn them, slowly, because this is just like the 20th to 21st video in the series. The author _owned, num pages, and num _pages as view size, added _add, and tags. For tags, there are multiple tags, so you have to iterate over them. We'll filter, map, and match entry. It's on string v dot to owned one, and here dot collect. Finally, say OK and book, because that's what you want back from this function. You want it results in a book, right? So we get a document and you get a book back. From the document, I'll just repeat again, you get all the values here, right? You see one by one you send those values using a while loop from your fetch books function. One by one you'll send those values to doc to book function, and with that particular doc, right, you're expecting books back, so that's why we'll create in the result it'll create a list of books, which is what you're returning from here, right? And in this function, which is doc to book function, you'll get each of the values from the document, like ID, name, author, number, pages, etc., and assign them to all of these values. We need all of these values because we want to create a book. As you can see, book struct looks like this. Then to create the book, since you got all of these values here in these variables, you just need to assign them to these values, which represent how a book looks like, and you decide. If you've done that, for tags you obviously need iteration, and then you filter, map, and all of that, and then finally you're returning back just one book. Okay. Now I just realized that you also need this get collection function. So like you'll need self.get collection function in a while, right, which is this self.get collection function, and I will create that as well now. So here, come here and say get collection ampersand self. This just returns a collection, self.client.database, and you'll have your database name dot collection and your collection, which is COLL, right? Okay. So we have one of the functions done, which is fetch books. But we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have create book, we have edit book, and delete book. Okay, so let's do those also quickly. Now let's work with create book function. So I'll come here and I'll say public async function create book takes in a book request. You know that because to create a book you need all the data of a book, like all of these things you need from book, and our handler is doing that. Our handler is sending that body which we are getting in the request, sending that body to this function create book, and this is the function we're creating. So we will get the complete book request. Book request being the struct that we defined here and handlers. Book request, right? All of these things, we'll get all of these things. So we're getting book request and we are returning the result. So let doc is equal to. Now you did doc to book because you were fetching documents and sending them as book to the user as a response. But here you need to create a doc. You have the book data, you need to create a document. So how will you do it? You'll say name, you'll have all these values, right? Name, author, number of pages. You'll have added underscore add, and you'll have tags. And we'll start creating the document. So we'll have entry, where entry is your book request. So entry has some values like name.clone, comma, author has entry.author.clone, and number of pages is entry.num pages as I32, and added at UTC. Now tags is entry.tags.clone. Okay. Now again, self.get collection. We created this get collection function already. And in MongoDB, when you have to insert one particular document, you say insert one, and we have already defined our errors like Mongo query error. So we'll map the error, Mongo query error, in case this doesn't work out. So this was the whole purpose of creating the errors that we did earlier. And what I'll do is I will bring these on this line. Okay. So that's it. That's my create book function. Now I have to work on edit book and delete book. Now delete book is much easier than edit book, so I will do that first. So I will say pub async function delete book. And here you have photo ID is equal to object ID with string ID dot map underscore error and we already have created our invalid ID error. Now whenever we're working with ID, right, for example in delete book and in update, you'll need the ID of the book to be deleted, and there you'll check if the ID is valid or not. So you can always say invalid ID error because you already designed that error. So everything is like interlinked, right? And here you select filter doc underscore ID ID self.get collection dot delete underscore one filter comma none. Right, so self.get collection, and then you'll delete with this filter where you're passing the ID, where ID is the object ID in this case. Await, and then again you will use your Mongo query error. Okay, so that's your delete book. And now you will create your edit book function. So you'll say pub async edit book. Book request. Okay, so edit book, you need the ID, just like you did with the delete book. But you also need the book request, just like you need it with the create book. You need book request, like the entry. So we'll get all these values. So firstly, we'll do the same thing that we did with object ID. We'll just copy and paste this. Okay. Then we'll do the same thing with query. So what we did with filter here, we'll just rename that to query. So here we'll just call it query. Okay. And then we'll create our doc. So I'll just copy and paste this for now. Okay, so this is why it's beneficial to do the edit book function later on, because you get your stuff from create book and delete book, and you can just organize those things. Okay, so here everything seems to be working fine, and I need all of this, so I'll copy and paste it here. But instead of delete one, you have update one, and you'll say query, doc, none. Right, everything else remains same. And just push it a bit. Yeah, now it looks fine to me. It makes sense. The code makes sense. And now we can go ahead and activate our extension. So Rust Analyzer. Okay, and we will enable it, and we'll see if everything looks okay. It shows there is one small issue somewhere. Actually, now it's showing 4 issues. But where are those issues? Can't see anything red. Okay, yeah, OID, object ID. So this seems to be an issue, because obviously it should look like this. And here it shouldn't have been capital S. Save it again. Still 5 more issues are pending. Okay. Yeah, it's because D is capital in the error that we had created, invalid ID error. Here as well, same thing. Still 3 issues left. Okay. Should have an author. Okay. And seems to be the issue here. Okay, let me fix this, but let me see if there's any more issues somewhere in this file. It says 2 issues. Are both of those issues coming from just one place, or yeah, it seems like that. In our main RS also there is some issue. Yeah, it's just a typo. So yeah, so there's only one issue remaining at your db.rs, and that's about it. For this part right out here, added at, it's because there's no question mark here in our added at field, so it's not able to refer that. So that's sorted. Now there's one more issue left. It's saying, and yeah, I can see it here, await wasn't supposed to look like this. So now all our files look clean. There seems to be no issue. Rust Analyzer has said that everything seems to be fine. All right, let's believe Rust Analyzer for now. And what I'll do is I will create a make file. So I'll say make file, and I will copy and paste everything here. And let me actually open up a new instance of my terminal. So I will cd into dev, cd into Rust, cd into this folder Mongo Rust YT with YouTube for YouTube, right? And I will now say make Mongo start. Okay. Yeah, so it's saying Docker daemon is not running. All right, so since this is the I'm using WSL, so starting Docker daemon, the command will be slightly different from what you would do. If you want to start off Docker daemon, you would say systemctl start or something like that, but we don't have, like for WSL, we don't have systemctl. So I'll have to put another command here. So in my case, I can say sudo service docker start. So it started off Docker for me, and now I will run make Mongo start. Okay, so the container is already in use. That means my container is already running, so I don't have to do anything here. So I can, but in your case, you'll see a different output. It'll start off the container actually, and then you have to say make dev. We'll compile and build everything for us, and we can expect some more errors here. Oh, so there are no errors, and it started on port 8080. And all you have to do now is start a new terminal, and let's get all our books. Something seems to be off. So we're not getting the response back from the server. I think there is an issue with connecting to MongoDB. So let me investigate it. It's quite possible that you're not getting this issue, but I am, because I have like multiple containers running in the background and all of that stuff, right? So quite possible you don't have this issue, but in my case, I'll just investigate it and I'll come back to you in a minute. All right, so I'm back. I've investigated the issue. In my case, the container wasn't running properly and was still consuming. It was connected to some other container, and there was some issue. So what all I did was, I'll just bring this here. I first stopped all the containers that were running in my case, and I removed all the previous containers, and then I started again. I did again the make Mongo start, and then I said again make dev, and then again my server has started. And now I can run this command again and get like empty book collection. And then if I want to create a book, I can do that, and I get all the list of all the books. And when I get the list of all the books, I can see the book here. Okay. So the project seems to be working just fine. Let's just try deleting it just to see if everything is all right. Everything is working fine. The only part is I get irritated with this, as you know by now, with this whole copying and pasting thing. And now when I get the list of all the books, it'll give me an empty array. Okay. So everything works fine. Just the thing with my container running and all of that stuff. You'll also have to do it in case there's some other container running in the background. You'll also have to like delete and stop all the containers, and then you're good to go. You can run the project. You're good to go. All right, guys. I hope you learned a lot from this video. It took me a while to shoot it. Right? It took me a while to plan it. It took me a while to plan it because I had to make it only incrementally little difficult. I couldn't make it like very, very difficult also. And this is the reason why I've not covered any big ActX Web project till now, because I have to first explain you ActX Web from like multiple projects, like basic projects, and then we'll build like a bigger project. So, but with this, I think we've done like 21 projects in Rust, and that's a great space to be in. And we'll only be building like more awesome projects from now. So I hope you're enjoying it. Comment in the in YouTube on these videos if you're enjoying it, and also follow me on GitHub, Akhil Sharma 90. All the code is there. Feel free to also start this code so that I know that you are following along with me. And also share these videos with your friends, guys. I mean, don't you want everybody else to also benefit from this awesome content? And Golang and Rust are the future. So you have to be, watching these videos. You have to be building along with me, and make sure your team members, if you work in a company, or your friends, if you're still studying, your classmates, your batchmates, whatever, share this with them. Let everybody benefit. It's all free content, right? And even if you pay for content on Udemy, there is no way you're getting this kind of content. It's already there for free. This is more than what you'll ever learn at college or school, and it's all for free on this YouTube channel. Share it on Twitter if possible. Let more people find it. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, guys.